It has all come down to this. The fate of the world in the hands of a hard-drinking, hard-fighting preacher, his brilliant and capable girlfriend, and their depraved Irish vampire of a best friend. In a satisfying, if slightly bloated, series finale to one of television's most unique shows. It's the very last Preacher, Season 4, Episode 10. End of the World. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our final review of Preacher. So yes, of course, all of the spoilers that we could possibly fit will be coming straight up. Also, as always, we do have our quick jump index system. Right in the description below, we'll have this entire review broken down, titleized, codified, time-stamped. You can jump to the middle first, you can jump to the end second, you can jump to the beginning here last. You can watch this review in any order you'd like. Alright, so a lot of stuff needing to happen in this episode. Like I was saying in the opening, it was satisfying. It was good. We had our build-up, we had all the pieces placed, and we just had a very raucous, high-intensity, go opening first half of this episode. But there was kind of almost so much going on by the time we hit like that halfway point. It felt like the episode was done. And when they finished, ended up, stopping the apocalypse and sort of saving the world, the three of them. How many people can say that? I know Cass went on a nice little list there. It sort of felt like an end right there. That felt like sort of a satisfying conclusion to the big rush in saving the world. I mean, how much more could you do than that? But we did have our continuing scenes afterwards of the 2 years later and what's happening. And while we had some good moments, in fact, some of our best, most impactful moments, I think, happening in the end there, because it kept laying on, it felt like the episode kept needing to end. I mean, by the time they saved the world, that felt like a good ending. And then they jump forward 2 years later, and you're seeing that it's we've got Jesse and Tulip have their little baby. They're still running from the Rodriguez brothers for some reason. But they've got their kid. They're growing up. They've got, they're hearing back from Cassidy. He sounds like he's starting to do a little well. They're got a satisfying life that they're moving into. That felt like a good ending there. And then we get to, but they finally find, the Grail finally finds God, and we sort of have that whole sequence there, and that sort of wraps things up, and that's felt satisfying. And then we had the saint scene with God, and then we had our kind of like final scene with Cassidy at the end. Each one of these, while satisfying unto themselves, it felt like a sort of stuttered ending. So that's what I'm saying. While it was satisfying, like I like how they wrapped things up. It was certainly very emotional by the end of the episode. The way it was structured made it just felt like a whole stutter stop right towards the end. But like I said, minor critique to what really did pretty satisfactorily wrap up all of our storylines. So, 9 minutes to the apocalypse. That's sort of a great way to open up an episode. Puts the pressure on, minutes ticking down. And I loved how we could sort of see the human end to the Grail's plan. That, of course, they've infiltrated the military. Of course, they've got people in the missile silos, all with the keys already, waiting for Humperdoo to do his dance and signal the end of the world. So like I said, a lot of great pressure on there. And again, here also showing how important humanity is to play in their own demise. And Cass opens that up beautifully with a question to God. Why are you doing this? The whole bagpiping away here. Why don't you just do it yourself and take care of the end of the world? That would be cheating. That's what free will is about. Humanity has to play its part. Part of God's plan is humans have to kill themselves. They have to bring along the apocalypse themselves. And I think Cass hit it right on the head when he says he likes to watch. Because he does. God's all giddy when he gets down to the stands and he's like ready, he's smiling, he's all happy. At the end of the world now, all of my plans to get rid of all of you sniving bastards. And I think that, again, that frames us very perfectly just what a despicable creature God is. Do have to appreciate the irony that he is caught right there with some fans that just have a few questions for him. That was sort of a nice little bit there. But that does sort of set us on our big countdown to the apocalypse with, again, a lot of moving pieces happening. We've got Jesse going up against the Saint, of course, quite violently, which then broadens out as Genesis' parents show up to defend their little one. We've got Featherstone going through a bit of a crisis of consciousness, realizing that everything she's devoted her life into is now not really what she believed to. She is surrounded by non-believers. Also learn a little bit about Sig Sauers and I guess jamming when they overheat. Good to know, I guess. You know, all information is good information. We've got Hitler versus Jesus in an epic throwdown, which goes quite beautifully well. We've got, of course, Star dealing with paper jams, trying to get the message out that it is not the end of the world. Please don't let it all go out. Which does make me answer the question, does God know this is supposed to be a limited exchange? Again, his whole joy in thinking humanity has to play a role would seem to actually play into his hands that humanity thinking that part of them is going to save themselves ends up not, because Star didn't know that Hoover 2 was actually a Pensacola police officer undercover. You know, I wouldn't put it past God. He is supposedly all-knowing. So we have all of these. In fact, I think there was one great kind of like super montage where they were playing all of these conflicting storylines and moments overlaying each other in that beautiful sort of split screen fashion that Preacher does so well. So yeah, a lot of big energy coming into the episode, and we sort of wrap things up, I think, pretty well. The Archangel parents, they get wiped out, killed by the Saint, who can kill anything. Even the Archangel sort of says it himself. The last dying thing, do the right thing for our child. Which, oddly, Jesse is able to sort of turn around. Which did sort of play into me. I have to say, the scene initially as that went didn't necessarily work. Because after all of this pursuit of the Saint after Jesse, that Jesse could just turn around and be like, yeah, kill me, spend the rest of eternity with your family, if that's what you really want. You know, obviously we find out it's sort of an edited scene. We get more of that later. The brilliant turnaround, I thought that worked perfectly. So we get that whole movement. We, of course, have Tulip going up against Cass with poor Humperdinck. God, that was just one of the saddest moments, I have to say. I mean, first off, we've got Cass and Tulip going against each other. And then, again, a beautiful scene. A lot of great emotion shared between both these characters and these actors throughout this episode. You know, Tulip, hey, I love Jesse, and I know that this hurts a little bit cruel, but grow up. We got to save the end of the world. And Cass, you know, he is tempted by the powers of God of going back in time and living a life with his family. I think he's sort of putting too much faith in God, personally, that God's going to live up to his side of the bargain here, or it's not just going to be some sort of heaven dream, though Cass would probably go with this. But that whole conflict there, you're the only one that made me laugh. I loved how that sort of ended up wrapping up. And poor Humperdew in the back, not wanting anything to be part of it, just wanting to hide there. It was just... honestly, that whole scene, and when it turned at the end, where finally Tulip shoots Cass, they stand up, he gets the gun away from her, it is still, you know, what you're thinking is the classic kind of end your line, still think I'm funny, huh? Yeah, I do. I can't quit you, Tulip. I love you. And that led to the sad end of poor Humperdew, which was just so... I mean, it saves the world. Sure. But come on. That hurt. That was sad. That really was a bummer. That really affected Cass. I think that maybe more than anything led Cass's sort of change in humanity and gave him the power to be a better person. He kind of, I think, even says that over Humperdinck's kind of like little body there. Is it's just better being with him. I think he inspired Cass. He didn't want to see Humperdinck dead, but Humperdinck, I mean, I'm not even sure if Humperdinck was like, he definitely didn't want to go out there. I think he definitely knew that that would be the end of the world, and he wanted no part of it. But I kept rewinding. I couldn't figure out what his last line is. He wanted the people outside to go away, but I don't know. Was he ready to die? I don't know how to answer that. I do like that his picture was up on the wall at Tulips and Jesse's place in the future, but we'll be getting there. So what? We've got all that. Then, of course, we've got, epic end of Jesus and Hitler. I mean, that was the perfect thing. Once we find out that Humperdinck is dead, and God's like, now what? Then he goes after Jesus. Oh, now you get to be the Messiah. Again, he's so mean. But Jesus has grown a bit. I mean, after all, he kills Hitler. I mean, come on, how perfect is that? Hitler's killed by a Jew, and what some may call the greatest Jew. I'm just saying for the point of the story. I'm not talking about what religion is better or anything like that. But again, a quite appropriate moment for Hitler to be killed by Jesus. And then Jesus to turn around and try and teach God about humanity, about forgiveness. Maybe you should forgive. It takes time. Be understanding. Again, just sort of that perfect difference between Jesus and God right there. Was sort of quite hilarious. And then it wraps up. I mean, really? I mean, again, we do have the whole Featherstone Star thing in encounter there. Was it pleasuring you with my anus? I don't think that's how that works, Star. I don't think how that works. But, again, fanatic, she gave too long. She believed him for a moment. He's never going to bring her on a submarine. Come on. And, of course, he gets away. But still, they stopped the world. They saved the world. They stopped the apocalypse. Yay! How many people can say that? Well, okay, Churchill. Lincoln, Frodo Baggins. That was a great little bit. It's not real, you know that? And that was it. And to me, that seemed like a perfect thing, especially the end. Now what? Which is, I guess, really the big question. While in some ways that's a perfect way to end, there are still other storylines, other little pursuits, the whole reason of going after God. Plus we got Eugene. And is that a way to wrap things up? Could have been. But no. He had some more. Now, first of those stories, I want to talk about Eugene, because it just really felt like Eugene's story has been unnecessarily stretched out. Also, the show writers do not have a fond vision of Australians, at least not the priests or doctors, because everyone around Eugene are just horrible people. Well, we had the cop there that believed that he had to have eaten Jesse because of how he looked. Then he goes to jail. Does well. I have to say about that. But the priest in there, just before he gets out, is talking to him like, why, with seeing you around, I just don't understand what God has a plan. Was an appetite suppressant? I mean, just cruel things. And this sort of continues the whole doctor's bit. And look, I was hopeful for a moment when Eugene had his face all wrapped up and they had to do some reconstructive surgery. I'm like, oh my God, wouldn't this just be a perfect turnaround as they pull it off and they fixed his face? And he looks just like normal Eugene now. That would be an incredible sort of turnaround for Eugene's story. But they don't go that way, and in some ways, sure, that's not necessary for Eugene. But how could you be shocked that he looks the way that he looked before? I mean, they knew that he didn't have a jaw or anything else. I mean, whatever the surgeons have done, calling it like a pet project, you know what it's going to look like underneath the bandage. I mean, outside of some scarring and stuff. But they have the big scream and run away. Oh, the horror of it. It's cruel. And then the doctor coming up, I've been thinking about you all day, and I can't do it, but I can just turn off all these meds, and you can just kill yourself and go off somehow since the end of doing it. I mean, again, that's so mean. It does get Eugene to sort of turn around and be like, I love his sort of stand up. You know, people have been saying this all the time, and it's been hard, it's been life, but it's worse because of a-holes like you that pretend to care. I mean, it was sort of a good stand-up Eugene moment. And he still wants to pursue his dream of playing on the curb and gonna be a rock star. Does find out that maybe a bit more of a death metal, thrash metal, more of his style. Closing time. That's not going to be the big draw. He's got to go with his look. Use that to his advantage. So yeah, I think the thrash metal rock part worked out. And I hope that ultimately that does play it. But a lot of those scenes, I think they could have probably finished Eugene's whole guitar thing before he got hit by the car and wrapped his story up then. It's good that he moves a little bit more. I like seeing him, but that's just really unnecessarily stretched out. So then we get our sequence of additional ending scenes. Again, as it sort of looked for me. And like I said, many of these were nice. I loved seeing, they did the jump 2 years later. Where are these people right now? What do you do after you save the world? And, of course, send the Grail off to go hunt down God to the ends of the earth. What do you do after that? I guess still run from the Rodriguez brothers. I don't understand why they're doing it. It's just to get car parts. They're doing it just for fun, aren't they? And he still has Genesis, so we can just order them to leave them alone. They're just playing. That's what they like to do. But they've done well. They've got a cute little baby girl. They're hearing from Cass, who's out doing peyote tours or wherever. People are moving on with life. It was sort of nice to see. And like I said, I liked that they had that little picture of Humperdoo in the back of the gas station there. It was just sort of a kind of a cute little reminder of, a good guy that had to die to save the world, but they still miss him. So, that was kind of cute. And that felt, like I said, a nice little ending moment. But, of course, the Grail has been sent out to find God. And all this has really been down to really Jesse confronting God and figuring out those answers. So, you got to have that scene, I suppose. I did love that he told, was it Tulip there? I have to go. Sorry, I want to go. Let's be honest. It was a great, I gotta say, I didn't mention before, sort of a beautiful little ending of Jesse's last confession there in front of the whole Grail, right as they save the apocalypse. And he's like, I've been pursuing God for so long, and I've been blind to the damage that's done to me. It's hurt the people I loved. It's hurt my friends. There was sort of an honest confessional in that moment. And I sort of, I love that. That's why I was thinking after they had done all this and he sent the Grail off, that would have been sort of a perfect way to sort of end things. Maybe with one coda scene that we're going to get to in just a minute. But that felt, that felt proper. That felt sort of like a purging type of thing. He didn't need to do this pursuit of God anymore. But you got to sort of wrap things up from a storyline standpoint. And where to do it better than the Alamo? It just seems appropriate, doesn't it? But not in the Alamo, of course, in the RV right outside of it. Which sort of left us to our beautiful dismissal of the Grails. You can go now. Go back to your lives. They're all dirty and nasty. They haven't showered, for 2 years pursuing F? Some of them just drop dead right there as soon as they're released. That was awesome. But we do. We have our final moment of Jesse with God, which is, of course, our Scene of the Week for this week. Because, come on, it has to be. It's what this has all been about. And it's set up beautifully. Because we have what seems to be a complicit God that wants to sit with Jesse and answer the questions and sort of all out. We see the voice working on him. And they didn't really get to explain that why Sometimes it seems to work and sometimes it's not. Maybe it's the intention that Jesse really had behind it. He didn't really want to order God around, so we couldn't do that. Here it definitely works. Make it daylight. Make it night again. Of course, have fun. Freak people out all over the world. They have no idea what's going on. And even that is like, great, you got it all out? Perfect. Beer, soda, let's sit down, we'll chat it out. It's a fireside chat with God. Get all of your questions answered. And as it goes, it's very much as Jesse sort of said that it was always going to be. You know, this is just me asking questions. Other religions, yeah, that doesn't sort of work. Aliens, that's sort of an interesting question. I did like the ending, for the statement about suffering. You know, why do you have kids with cancer? Suffering builds strength. And if you die, well, then it builds strength in those that survive. It's true, I guess. Again, builds whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I suppose. Suffering and pain all inclusive. So there is kind of a feel that this is an honest kind of sorting of things out. We're moving on. The world has been saved. Humanity has a reason to survive. And yet, even now, this is about God needing something. And here it ended up being all about love. I need you to say that you love me. I need that. I need that. There is still that desire. There is still that manipulation, which makes this whole scene feel just like this. This is God saying whatever he has to do and doing whatever he has to do to get what he wants. But the end factor doesn't mean anything for him. And I think that's why when Jesse throws it back into his face and throws him all over, I mean, again, it's just he sees God for who he is. You shouldn't be in charge. You are needy and you are whiny and you are too powerful for your own good. And even better yet, he gets rid of Genesis and then punches God in the face. It was just, it's a perfect thing. Again, it wraps everything up here. He releases Genesis. He comes back to just being Jesse. He sees he doesn't need it because what God wants, his love, he can freely not give him. He doesn't need justice to do it. And there's nothing that God can really do to him to make him give him what he wants. I mean, beautiful scene when he gets rid of Genesis and God's eyes turn up and I will be, all the evil kind of stuff. Chew up your bones and spit you out. Use your bones for teeth, for picking my teeth and Yeah, it still won't make me love you. It's perfect. It just shoves him right in his face, the most powerful being in the planet, and he denies him as just a human being. Like I said, still punches him in the face and then walks away. It was, in many ways, a perfect wrap-up scene for everything. We get our God answers, we get our confrontation, we see how petty he is, and Jesse is able to just go back to his life. It's a happy ending in many ways. And it just tells God, leave us alone, we're good to go. Don't need you. But of course, that's still not the end. We do have one more scene, and this is the one scene that I think could have been probably trimmed down short and added as a coda at the end of the whole we just saved the world bit. Jesse had his confession in front of the Grail, sends him off to find God, runs around the earth there, just goes off with his friends, and we see God riding off on his motorcycle. It would have been a great way to end, do the credits, and then add this last scene on it. And that, of course, is God returning to heaven, finding all of the heralds dead, and of course, the saint right there waiting for him. This is a perfect way to sort of, again, wrap things up. It would have denied us our scene with Jesse, between Jesse and God. And again, that ended up being super important, and obviously the scene of the week. But they could have maybe have skipped that necessarily, and still, I think, had a semi-satisfying ending if they had wrapped it up with this right here. Because this is God getting his comeuppance. Because he's still returning back into heaven, thinking that he can regain his throne, thinking that he can go back and be the Lord again and do all of his things. But he still has to deal with the saint. The one person he's not expecting there because he thinks the saint's dead. And he would have gone to hell. Except for a deathbed confession. Those are sort of the rules. Deathbed confession to a priest absolves you of all of your sins, straight to heaven. There you go. And he's just waiting by the throne, using his own rules against him. And still we have God playing the lies and telling the saint exactly what he wants to hear. You can be with your family, you can do these things, you can do all this stuff. Just let me get to the throne, man. That's all. It's all about love. Again, hitting this love. Let me show you this love. The center of all of God's plans. Not, of course, being the creepy little RV creatures who I forgot to mention at the end of that last one, but still. He wanted love, and that's all that they wanted to give him. They were programmed, I love you, and he couldn't stand to hear it, because that's not free will. That's what he's all about. So he can't make the saint move, certainly can't command him as he tried to do, has to convince him. And almost does, but saint's not interested in love, he's still going after hate. And that is the end of God, which puts the saint on the throne. I mean, the world sort of turns out okay. I guess that was a good choice, but that makes me worry. Look, I just got to say, the saint of all killers being on the throne of God, he's a harsh God. Harsh God. But, of course, even that is not the end. We do have our one final coda scene, 40 years in the future, 2065. Jesse and Tulip have passed away. Their daughter, looking just like Tulip, much like Jesse had said, standing by a grave with a very fine-looking Cassidy. And I have to say, this was the most emotional scene for me. Because in some ways, you know, it's a little cheesy, and I was really worried that we were going to have this, well, Jesse's gone, and you look like Tulip, and could have a whole Cassidy, like, post-Tulip relationship there. It would have been really creepy. And I'm so glad they didn't do that. Because they kept it all really emotional. It's about friendship, you know. Cassie's hearing how much Tulip always loved him. Jesse always loved him. They always talked about him. You were the best friend. And he just never came back. I mean, he's eternal. And also, we could see how hard it would have been for him to go back and see them still being in love with Tulip. Jesse being his best friend, just kind of on the third wheel, and he's trying to be good and change his life. I mean, and time just gets away. I mean, I can imagine after 150 years or however long he was in before this all started, another 40 years, probably not that long for him. And yet, for humans, that could be the rest of their lives. So it was just sort of just a sweet moment of seeing Cassidy turning himself around, the love and power of the friendship there. It was already getting me a little teary. And I'm going to warn you, I might start tearing up right here. Because when he's just like, I'm going to go, maybe someplace I've never been before. And it's like she knew it. You know, are we ever going to see you again? God, I hope so. But not on this earth. And then he just puts the umbrella up on the... I'm going to do it! Puts the umbrella up on the grave marker there and just sort of walks in the sun. Especially, again, just behind her as she's sort of appreciating life and the moment and the whole, you know, circle of everything. How it's just in the background. He just walks out into the sun and away out of frame. To die and to be wherever his friends are, to spend eternity. So again, get an extra scene, all the emotion right there. All right, just a couple of small things real quick here. One, the death chant of the Grail as the apocalypse is counted down. They're waiting for Humperdoo, and all the audience is shouting is, "Kill us all! Kill us all!" It's so wrong, but pretty funny. I think it's kind of appropriate that Jesus ends up in customer service, right? I mean, just working in a paint store, helping you find the right color for your house with a 90-day money-back guarantee. I mean, it just sounds like satisfaction, and he does seem to enjoy his job. While we have a lot of comeuppance at the end of this episode, Star still gets away with it all. Almost has his moment as the Florida police show up to take him down. But of course, his kinkiness will always be enough of a distraction to allow him to steal their gun, shoot them, and bury them in the sand trap, and continue on with his 9-iron. So, yeah, it just seems right. Jesse gets away with it. Star really should too. He's got his looks. He's got what he wanted. Seems like balance, I suppose. All right, so that's it. That is the end of Preacher. And as I said, I think a satisfying ending. They save the world. We get to see that they do live long lives afterwards, kind of long, full, happy lives. They die of old age. They go on to whatever death world awaits them, and eventually Cassidy joins with them. God gets his comeuppance, and, Star lives on. But hey, still, for the most part, everything sort of gets sorted out. I think in the end, a very satisfying wrap-up to this story. But I have to say, all of this done with kind of a heavy heart watching this, because this was a very fun show. It was a great show. It had an amazing blend of violence and action and absurdity and ridiculousness and some incredible acting performances, some great emotional bits, and just some flat-out hilarious WTF moments as well. So really a shame that the show is gone, and yet I do feel that the show ran it up and ended itself perfectly. It wrapped up all of its storylines for the most part. We're assuming that Eugene becomes a big rock star. I'm going to pull for him. But yeah, I think it wrapped everything up perfectly. So, a nice way to end the show. Very sad that it's gone. Very happy that it was ended in a satisfying way and allowed to actually end and not just sort of get story cut off with a cancellation. So, thank you, AMC, for that. But that, of course, does wrap us up for this review and this show. Thank you so much for joining me with all of these reviews for Preacher and all of my other reviews as well. I do greatly appreciate it. And we've got some really fun shows coming up next. Of course, next week we got the start of season 10 of The Walking Dead, taking on the Whisperers. We also have the final season, yet another, of Mr. Robot. Both of those are going to be on Sunday starting next week. So full day of reviews right there. And then, of course, in November, we've got The Mandalorian from the new Disney Plus series. So good stuff coming up. Please be sure to join me for all of those reviews. But if you enjoyed this review, you know what I'd like? You just go ahead and hit that like button. Please, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, throw those down in the section below. What'd you guys think of this episode? Did it work perfectly for you? Was it paced well? Did you feel it was sort of a stuttered ending? And did it wrap everything up the way that you were hoping for? Let me know. Throw your thoughts down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe. Quick, easy, one button press. Catch all these wonderful upcoming reviews. Awesome shows. Just do that by hitting this button right here. And we'll go up and throw ahead a couple of our latest reviews right here for you to check out. So, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.